No masks, just the truth, the full truth about what it's like to grow up in the spotlight of ministry and still come out standing.
Hi, my name is Marley.
My name is Aaron.
My name is Antonia. Welcome to the Full Disclosure Project.
Now that it's all out there, let's talk about what we've learned. The wisdom, the work, and the words that we're leaving behind.
How has your relationship with faith or church evolved over time?
So my relationship with faith and church definitely has evolved over time. I think for me, the turning point was at that point where I recognized for myself going to church was causing more harm. And so I took a break. I did more ministry in other churches, other denominations, and spent a lot more time just with me and God. And I think those years in the stillness is really where my relationship with God blossomed. And I think oftentimes there's this rhetoric about, oh, so-and-so backslid or doesn't come to church anymore. Sometimes that's exactly where God needs them to be in order for him to do his work, because that was definitely my experience. I've also developed a greater notion as to who I am, outside of what my parents say, outside of what church folks have to say, but really about what God says about me, and holding that and making that something that is an integral part of how I see myself every single day.
My relationship with the church is non-existent now. I want to say that I started deconstructing maybe 15 years ago. And I wasn't truly aware of what deconstructing was. I just knew that I was pulling myself further and further away. And then when I finally had the words for it, I put two and two together and was like, oh, I've been on this journey for a while. And then I was more intentionally on that journey for the past 10 years. It's hard stepping away from something that you have known your entire life, something that at one point brought a lot of comfort and a lot of safety, especially. I felt very safe. But when I realized that I no longer felt safe in these spaces, I didn't feel safe, not just like physically, I didn't feel safe emotionally, I didn't feel safe spiritually. I didn't feel safe bringing other people into that space. And in order for me to properly assess that, I had to take a step back. And ironically, during that time, I started working for Berman during that time. And so working for an Adventist institution while also being like, am I an Adventist anymore? Is this for me? Having to sign a contract to be like, yeah, I'll adhere to these things, but also, do I believe this anymore? Like, a job is a job. Like, it was the most money I'd ever made. So I was like, cool, but also, And it only worked because I didn't have to move across Canada again. I could stay here. So where it was familiar, where I was fine, where all my creature comforts were around, where I could still be me. But having that time away clarified a lot for me. I found that being in church and being in spaces with other Adventists that were very much like, this is what it is, we do not veer from the path, and we cannot question, and we cannot ask any questions, and this is how it is, and God said da-da-da-da-da. And I was the person in the corner being like, hi, discrepancy. And when I found that I was becoming the person in the space who was just arguing. And not because I intentionally showed up that way, but because I could no longer keep my mouth shut. Like, I could no longer sit in a space and just be like, yeah, totally, everyone has their opinions. I was like, but your opinion is wrong. Like, I would literally sit down and go, no. More things just really bubbled to the surface for me. And I said, how many things have I just not I haven't spoken up about? I've just silenced. Because I was like, well, no one else is talking about it, so I'm just not gonna. But I said, I need to be the person in the room that I needed. Like, I have to show up in that way. I have to be the person that I needed at this age. Like, I have to be. And that pushed me so far because it allowed me to extend grace to myself, finally, after 20 something years, like finally. And then it gave me the power to embolden other people and to like push other people to also seek that for themselves. And I found that the more and more I did that, the further and further away from church it led me. And I didn't really notice it until one day I was like, when was the last time I went? When was the last time I went to church? I was like, I couldn't even recall at that point. Like it was such a distant memory.
So the way that I saw myself was very much so that I was necessary, right? Like there was some level of this that wouldn't go as well or however everybody else wants it to go. Because like this is all very arbitrary. We don't need for me to play the piano. We don't need for there to be drums. We don't need, like, so much of what happens in churches is so completely just, we decided to do this. And because we've decided to do this and we've gotten used to it, we're gonna, like, I remember when our church in Pickering didn't have a piano. It didn't have a drum set. So it's like, and I think people still got saved. I think messages were still preached. I think people's lives were still changed. Or if they weren't, then maybe they weren't afterwards either. But I think that they were. And because of that, I don't think that it's anywhere near that necessary. But as far as this, as far as the experience that everyone's trying to cultivate, the thing that everybody wants to do, I am necessary to that, right? I'm necessary to a version of church that doesn't end in us like clapping and just yelling. And if everybody doesn't want to just clap and like yell words, then you need me at some point. So at some point I saw myself as being very necessary. So I saw myself as being very useful. Because to that point, I kind of like extended that as well. So I learned more things to be more useful, where I was like, okay, well, we have an overhead projector that was literally like with the little like the sheets of like plastic with projecting the thing. And it was like, okay, but we need like a projector so we can connect to a computer. And like, I learned how to do that kind of thing and like taught it to my siblings so that they could do it. And you know, I played the piano, but I learned the drums and I learned a little bit of bass and I learned the guitar so that like, you know, I could communicate all the things. I learned to play saxophone, so that there's horn people, I could learn how to do that kind of thing. I figured out, like I could always, even when I wasn't confident in singing, I could tell you your note if I had to, because like, it's that kind of thing. So it was like a thing where I saw myself as being some level of instrumental to the version of church that we want to do. While at the same time still being very much like an add-on. Like, first and foremost, I'm an add-on, but I'm the add-on if you want the rest of it, was how I would see myself. And by extension, I saw a lot of people as being very useless, which is really just what happens. If I do all of these things, then what do you do? Not very much. Unfortunately, that's just the case. Like, if I've done everything, what did you do, right? And that was kind of the thing where it was like in the background of my mind, I'm wrapping cables and, you know, everybody else, like I said, stacks 5 chairs and goes home. And it's like, okay, but like, okay, well, you know, Ryan can go home because Ryan couldn't tear down a drum kit anyways. It's fine. Like, you're not good at that part of that thing. You're not useful for this thing. So it was a thing, like I'm phrasing it kind of like glibly on purpose, but it was very much a thing where I was like, you guys can't do these things, so I will do these things. Mm-hmm. Which, yeah, so like I saw myself as being very useful. I saw a lot of people as being very useless, or at least very like auxiliary. And then as far as how I saw God, I don't know, there is something to be said about how churches run on free labor and churches run on volunteerism and all of these things. And because of that, the more useful you are, the less you will be scrutinized in that sense. Because they need you. So the more useful you are, the less anybody is going to look twice at you if you don't want to pray or if you don't want to do whatever else. Because ultimately, again, I stop playing and then it's quiet kind of thing. So I think that it was a thing where I wasn't really all that cognizant of my relationship with God in any real way. It was very much like, I know God's there. God knows I'm here. We're good. Like, I don't feel like mired in sin or anything like that really, but I don't feel very much else either, because all I really have to do is play piano and sing the songs and do the things. And as long as I do all of the things, it's fine. Nobody really asks me any questions.
In what ways has being a PK shaped who you are today?
It shaped me in every way, always. My willingness and want to continuously create space for other people, I think, is a beautiful outcome of being in that situation. I watched my parents help so many families, and as much as there was a lot of things where we were like, oh, like we wish we spent more time or like had more individual attention, it was also such a beautiful teaching moment to see your parents sacrificing things to help other people. And that's what community is, right? So along with that, I would say routine. And knowing that you had church every Sunday, you got to wake up early in the morning, you need to hygiene, things like that. You need to make sure you're well dressed. You need to make sure that you smell good, you look good. Lifelong friends that turn into family. I grew up with a lot of people. So my parents are here and they don't really live close to any of their extended family. So it really was like just our family and our church family. And I literally have people to this day that I call my cousins because we grew up that way. Mm-hmm. And I think that that is a beautiful thing that's come from that. Even people that I still work with to this day. And so I think that that was such a beautiful thing that shaped who I am now. Community, building space, kind of finding positivity in everything and anything. Me and my friends were out this summer. We went out and we were gonna go to this place and we didn't end up being able to get in. And so we just went to a parking lot, turned music up in the car and just started having a time. And it's like things like that teach you kind of how to make something out of nothing, and joy even when things are not maybe the situation that you want. And so sometimes you would have to, go to choir practice or worship team practice. You're not on the worship team, so you're just vibing and you find little things to do. That's how I picked up on music and putting myself in positions to be able to learn things that people pay thousands of dollars to learn. I learned from the age of 7 how to harmonize, how to be in a choir, in a group, how to lead other people. So all of the things that I've learned to this day have come from my upcoming in the church and my upbringing in the church. Being able to work with children, being able to work with different personalities, working with children with special needs, working with adults with special needs. There's so many things that come from this experience that's so unique and so beautiful. So I think all things, everything that I am has kind of come from this foundation. So we very much were not allowed to listen to anything outside of Christian music and basically R&B. What else? We weren't allowed to watch a lot of shows because everything was a demon thing. Couldn't watch Pokemon. All of the things that all of the kids grow up on now that I cannot relate to anybody on. SpongeBob, all of the things. We weren't allowed to watch anything that either wasn't pretty much Christ-centered, extremely childish, or another thing I didn't really speak about is that my parents are very Afrocentric. So anything that wasn't about like Black history, we couldn't watch it. So those were some of the expectations, is that we kind of remained as graceful as possible. They didn't want us taking in anything that would influence us outside of what we were learning in church and what we were learning at home.
Full disclosure is definitely on one side, it is about, like I said, all of the information that might not be openly offered. All of the stories, all of the lessons, all of those things that might not be fully openly offered because of the motivations that one might have behind sharing or withholding information. On a more personal level, full disclosure to me personally is a very interesting and intimate thing that it's an experience that I've very infrequently had as far as giving people full disclosure with myself. It has always been that, like, in my experience, being a pastor's kid has made me a master of compartmentalizing and separating and holding one thing here and one thing there. And, because of, like I mentioned, the scrutiny and stuff like that you experience, you tell your friends at school that you're a pastor's kid, and now they have expectations for how you're supposed to act and things like that. So, like, I'm not quick to give full disclosure.
I think that means to me sharing all sides. I think that it is easy for us to make our past and our trauma sometimes a villain, but I think that it kind of is a cheat code. Understanding all sides of a story, or trying to understand all sides of a story, will kind of give you a bigger picture to look at. And I say that because growing up and, like, now being a mother myself and understanding that I'm literally the age that my parents were when they had 4 kids and were leading an entire community of people. Number one, that's incredible and insane. But number 2, it is seeing all of the shortcomings and understanding that I can't even do everything myself. So with seeing the full picture and having the full disclosure, you get to understand that your parents were just people. And even when it didn't work for you, it still worked for you, Oh no, I'm getting emotional.
Let it flow. Take your time.
I think that makes me emotional because it was kind of a release, but a release of, like, forgiveness, I think. Yeah, being a parent and just understanding all of the things that I'm sure my parents experienced that we didn't understand. Of course, there's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of crazy things that go on in the back that people don't get to see as a PK. We get to see it all. We get to see the full picture. And understanding now what they must have been going through and how that may have affected them and maybe their goals and their dreams. Yeah. That's what that means to me. Getting the full picture and understanding so that you can move on.
I feel like this journey isn't for for the faint of heart. But I was very faint of heart when I started this journey, and it definitely emboldened me and strengthened me in those ways. So I don't want to deter people from changing their environments and, reassessing their viewpoints and ways of life, because so many beautiful things come from it. And while I know for me, being a part of organized religion is not where I'm at anymore, or at least right now, I still respect that for other people it still is a safe space, and it's still a space of healing and growth, and I love that. I want people to have community. Everyone should have community. And if that community is being in church and being with other church people and being a part of those things and finding that joy in religion, like, you know, go for it. As long as it's something that doesn't harm other people. But for me, I have found a lot of joy not being tied down in a way, because that's how I felt. I felt very tied down. And now that I feel more free and more secure and like sure in myself, I feel like, you know, for once I finally can use these wings that have just been strapped behind my back for 3 decades, and I'm finally flying, and I, you know, finding my footing and feeling more alive than ever. And I truly attribute that to, you know, growing up in this environment. There are so many beautiful things that I absolutely will take with me from my journey of being a PK and growing up in the church and learning so many wonderful things, and really took me to the places there, you know, I'm at now, and I'll never deny those things. And I'm grateful. I don't know, this life is just so precious and so tiny, you know, and I want to be able to experience it to its fullest, and however that looks, even in the next like 6 months, you know, I want to make sure that I am doing everything that I can to live it and to also find joy in it. And that's the biggest thing for me, is like this, I've said that 2025 is for enjoyment, 2025 and beyond. Every other year before this was struggle. And I was like, I just want to enjoy, you know? And that for me looks like this. It looks like telling my story. It looks like engaging in spaces that I didn't think I'd be in anymore, from a more healed and like guarded but open like heart and space. And I'm, yeah.
I want for everybody who is watching to remember that your pastors, your deacons, your lay ministers, your bishops, your whatever authority moniker they have or have given themselves, these are people. They may be people who operate under an anointing, under a certain amount of authority, whatever have you. They are people. They are men, they are women, they are people.
I think a lot of the experiences that I've had as a PK have really helped me to kind of hone my strength and to hone some of the positive attributes that I do have, namely to be part of change, change for the betterment of people's lives. And I think that's probably why I'm a social worker today. I really, really value being part of people's lives and walking with them as part of their journeys. Authenticity is a huge thing for me. And if whatever you're doing is not based in authenticity, don't do it. There's so many people who get caught up in the performance of church, and we can tell. One way or another, it's going to show itself. And, you know, one of the purposes of church is community. It's coming together of God's people. And there's no way you can build meaningful relationship with others on the foundation of a fallacy. Anyone hearing my story, I would hope that you remember the sentiment of, if you see something, say something. A lot of the experiences that I've had, not only did the original offense hurt, but it was worsened by the folks who witnessed staying silent. And that silence is where the pain really takes hold, where the pain grows, where the pain manifests itself in a lot of other different ways that are not the most helpful. And so again, if you see something, say something. I find a lot of people, they hide their silence behind the veil of what's respectful. And to be honest, it's just an excuse to make yourself feel more comfortable at the expense of someone else. I think the other piece of what I would like folks to remember is that if you are someone who's experienced church hurt, or if you're someone who's still dealing with the effects of church hurt or some of those negative experiences, that you remember to pace yourself, that you remember to pause, that you remember to ask for help along your journey, but that you keep going, that you don't stop. Because to be honest, there's no better place for you than being securely planted in the hands of God. And where God has you is where He has you. Lots of love and a huge appreciation going out to Aaron, Antonia, and Marley. Thank you so much. Y'all really understood the assignment. And to everyone watching, commenting, liking, and sharing, a big shout out to you as well. We appreciate all the love. So thanks for watching, and I guess that's a wrap.